You think you are solid right now, sitting there. You feel real. You feel whole. You feel like something that takes up space. That is wrong. Your gut is wrong. Your hands are wrong. Everything you have ever touched, wrong. There are 5 specific walls standing between you and the truth of what you actually are. 5 verdicts. And by the time we reach the last one, the word solid will never mean the same thing again. Let's begin. For thousands of years, people looked at their hands and thought, this is real, this is matter, this is something. The ancient Greeks had a word, atomos, the indivisible thing, the final, irreducible part of reality. Around 400 BC, Democritus, walking barefoot on the shores of Abdera, looked at the world and said, if you keep cutting something in 2, you eventually get a piece so small that it cannot be cut again. That is the bottom. That is the ground. For 2,000 years we believed it. Not because we had proof, because it felt right. Because solid things feel solid. Because when you press your palm against a wall, the wall pushes it back. It feels like proof. Then came Rutherford. In 1911, in a laboratory in Manchester, Ernest Rutherford threw tiny particles at a gold plate thin enough for light to pass through. He expected the particles to pass through directly, perhaps slowing down, but they would. Most pass through. But some bounced back directly. It's like a bullet fired at thin paper coming back and hitting you in the face. Rutherford later said this was the most incredible thing that had ever happened to him in science, because it meant that an atom is not a solid ball. An atom is almost entirely empty space. A tiny nucleus at the center, surrounded by electrons so far apart that if the nucleus were the size of a marble, the nearest electron would be half a mile away, half a mile of empty space. And your body, are made of these atoms. There are 5 walls, 5 specific reasons why the word solid is a story we tell ourselves. Let's examine them one by one. Think of it this way. Imagine a cathedral, Notre Dame in Paris, enormous, ancient, the kind of building that makes you feel small when you stand in front of it. Now, place a single marble slab in the middle of that cathedral on the floor. That marble is the nucleus of a hydrogen atom. The walls of the cathedral, its outer edges, its towers, its roof are where the electron lives. Everything between the marble and the walls, empty, almost empty, mostly not empty, empty. No air, no fog, no invisible matter we haven't yet named, just nothing. Now take that cathedral, line up 10 million of them side by side. That's 1 centimeter of matter. Do you think that's solid? Your table, your floor, your bones, each one is a hollow cathedral, each one built around a single marble slab, wall to wall. Here's the number. The nucleus of an atom occupies about 1/1000th of the total volume of the atom. Write that down. 0.0001%. If you removed all the empty space from every atom and every human being on Earth, all 8 billion of us, the matter that remained would fit inside a sugar cube. A sugar cube. 8 billion people, a sugar cube. That doesn't work, you might say. I still repel things. I still can't get through walls. That's true. But here's why, and here's where the strange part begins. It's not rigidity that's stopping you. It's electricity. When your hand touches a table, your electrons and the table's electrons repel each other. They have the same charge. Like 2 magnets turned in opposite directions, they never actually touch. Your hand never touches anything. Never. Not once in your life have you physically made contact with the world. The feeling of rigidity is the feeling of electromagnetic repulsion. You're not touching, you're suspended in the air. Always. About an angstrom, 1/10 billionth of a meter away from anything you've ever held. But here's the part nobody tells you, and this is where things get really strange. You might think, fine, the atom is mostly empty, but at least I know where the pieces are, the nucleus here, the electron there. At least the parts are solid, even if the space between them isn't. That is also wrong. An electron does not have a location, not because we haven't found it yet, not because our instruments are too crude. but because location is not a thing an electron possesses. This is quantum mechanics. This is not philosophy. This is the most tested, most confirmed theory in the history of human science. Think of it this way. You have a friend. You know your friend is somewhere in the city. You don't know exactly where, but if you look hard enough, you'll find them on a street corner, in a cafe, at a park. They have a location. They are somewhere. An electron is not like that. An electron exists as a cloud of probability. It is smeared across space, not moving too fast to track, actually genuinely smeared. It does not become real in one place until you force it to. The act of measuring it, observing it, collapses all that probability into one spot. But before that moment, it was everywhere it could be, all at once. The technical term is a probability wave function. Think of it this way. Before you look, the electron is like a soap bubble, a thin, shimmering shell of possibility surrounding the nucleus. When you look, pop, it becomes a point, but only for that moment. Your body is built from soap bubbles. Every atom in your left hand contains electrons that have no fixed address. They are probability clouds, ghost-like, spread through space, obeying rules so strange that the man who helped write those rules, Richard Feynman, said, "If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics." Here is the Somet Sec. A single human body contains approximately 7 billion atoms. That is a 7 followed by 27 zeros. Each one of those atoms contains electrons with no location, no fixed position, no solidity. You are not a thing. You are a pattern of probabilities that has convinced itself it is a person. Okay, you might say, but the nucleus, surely the nucleus is solid. Protons, neutrons, surely those are real hard things. That won't work either, because we need to go deeper. Stop. What I am about to tell you changes everything. The nucleus of an atom contains protons and neutrons. For a long time we thought those were the final floor. The uncuttable things Democritus dreamed of. The real, true bottom of reality. They are not. Protons and neutrons are made of quarks, 3 quarks each, bound together by particles called gluons. And here is where the story becomes almost impossible to hold in your mind. The mass of a proton, the thing that gives it weight, gives it substance, does not come from the quarks inside it. The 3 quarks inside a proton account for only about 1% of its mass. 1%. Think of it this way. Imagine a jar of jam. You open the jar and find that the jam itself weighs almost nothing, but somehow the jar feels heavy. Where is the weight coming from? It is coming from the energy of motion. The quarks inside a proton are moving. They are moving so fast, so violently, bound by the gluon field, that the energy of that motion, pure kinetic energy, becomes mass. Through Einstein's equation, energy and mass are interchangeable. E equals mc squared. The motion itself becomes matter. You are not made of stuff. You are made of trapped motion. Your body is a collection of tiny things, moving so furiously that the motion itself creates weight, creates resistance, creates the illusion of substance. Here is the number. The quarks themselves have almost no mass. If you added up all the true intrinsic mass of every quark in your body, you would get something roughly the weight of a grain of sand. You, all of you, are a grain of sand's worth of actual matter, held together by energy and probability and electromagnetic force, arranged in a pattern so precise that it can think and feel and wonder what it is made of. And now we reach the wall no one sees coming. Now let's talk about something no one else is saying out loud. We have been talking about emptiness as if it is nothing, as if the space between your atoms, that vast cathedral-sized void, is just absence, blank, zero. It is not. The vacuum of space, the emptiness between things, is seething with energy. Physicists call it the quantum vacuum, or zero-point energy. Think of it this way. Even at absolute zero, the coldest temperature possible, even in a perfect vacuum with nothing in it, energy still flickers. Particles pop into existence and vanish again in intervals so short that no instrument has ever caught one in the act. They are called virtual particles. They are not metaphors. They have been measured. The Casimir effect, two metal plates held very close together in a vacuum, shows them pushing the plates together. Empty space pushing on things. Nothing doing something. The empty space inside your atoms is not silent, it is roaring. Every cubic centimeter of the vacuum contains more energy, according to some calculations in quantum field theory, than all the visible matter in the observable universe. We do not know how to access it. We barely know how to think about it. But it is there, inside you, in the spaces between your atoms, in the gaps between your quarks. The universe is humming at a frequency we have no name for. You are not mostly empty. You are mostly a roaring, invisible sea of quantum energy, wrapped in a thin layer of probability, told by your nervous system that you are solid. Your emptiness is full. This is the moment most videos stop. We are going further. Here is the thing about being mostly empty. It is not comforting at first. Sit with it for a moment. Really sit with it. You came here thinking you were solid, thinking you were a thing. A real, dense, continuous object moving through a real, dense, continuous world. And now you know the truth. You are a pattern. A temporary agreement between particles that have no location, built from motion masquerading as mass, held together by a force you cannot see, floating in a vacuum that is somehow louder than everything else in the universe. That should feel lonely. And for a moment, let it. The universe is 14 billion years old. 14 billion. Think of it this way. If the entire history of the universe were compressed into a single calendar year, modern humans, our species, Homo sapiens would appear at approximately 11:59 p.m. on the 31st of December. We have been here for less than 1 minute of a 14 billion year story. For almost all of that time, there was no pattern like you, no pattern like any of us. There were stars, yes, hundreds of billions of them, burning in the dark for millions of years each, massive and ancient and utterly indifferent. There were galaxies, vast islands of light, 2 trillion of them in the observable universe alone, each containing hundreds of billions of their own stars. There were nebulae, clouds of hydrogen so enormous that if you placed one in our solar system, it would swallow the orbits of every planet. These things burned and collapsed and exploded and cooled across timescales that make human history feel like the blink of an eye inside another blink. And not one of them wondered what they were made of. That is the part that stops me. Not the size, the silence. For 14 billion years, the universe was enormous and beautiful and completely, perfectly silent. No curiosity, no questions. Just hydrogen falling into gravity wells, igniting, burning, dying over and over and over in a loop with no observer. Then, on a pale blue rock orbiting an unremarkable star in the outer arm of one average galaxy, something changed. The atoms arranged themselves slowly over billions of years of chemistry and accident and pressure into a pattern complicated enough to look back at the stars and ask, where did I come from? That pattern is you. Every atom in your left hand was forged inside a star that no longer exists. The iron in your blood was made in a stellar explosion so violent it briefly outshone the entire galaxy around it. The calcium in your bones, the oxygen moving through your lungs right now, all of it cooked in stellar cores across billions of years, scattered across space, gathered here, assembled into something that can feel the weight of all of it. That is not poetry, that is nuclear physics. You are a temporary arrangement of stellar ash, and you are the only kind of arrangement in the known universe complicated enough to know that about itself. Your emptiness is not a flaw. It is the architecture of something that needed to be light enough to move, delicate enough to feel, impermanent enough to care. Rocks do not care. Stars do not care. Galaxies, for all their grandeur, do not care. But you built from almost nothing, held together by electromagnetic ghosts, walking around on a thin film of atmosphere above a molten core. You care, deeply, inexplicably, against all odds. The universe spent 14 billion years building something that could look up at it with wonder. You are that something. Your emptiness is full of stars.